Hello, I'm Eileen Roach, and welcome to today's episode of Between Friends. I'm delighted that you've joined me for quilting foam for bag making. There are some tips and tricks that I'm just thrilled to share with you. And I know many of you were here last week and the week before. I was out for 2 weeks. I know you were in good hands with Ashley Jones, so thank you for joining in with Ashley. And so nice to see so many of you wherever you're watching from. I hope you're having a great day. We are going to talk all about, bag making. And normally we talk about in the hoop bags, but really this is, the traditional way of making bags. So let's go ahead and go into PowerPoint and take a look at exactly what we're going to be talking about. So as you can see, some bags have that beautiful shape, right? And some bags, we just start with rectangles. So we're going to delve into those two different starting places and then finish up with the quilting. So 5 steps into how to quilt foam for bag making. And they are, first off, identify the bag sections, plan the quilting, prep the foam, so important, make the quilt sandwich, the foam sandwich. And that is, sometimes it'll be 3 layers and sometimes it'll be 2. It depends on what kind of lining you have. And then last, we're going to hoop and quilt. So let's go ahead over and shop the walls so I can show you all the products that we're going to use today in the program, and then we'll start planning our quilting. So first up, we're going to need Sew Any Shape foam. And this is the foam that we developed here at Dime that is machine embroidery friendly. It's just a little bit lighter loft than other foam products that you might be familiar with, but it does have a nylon cover on both sides, so it holds the cotton fabrics that we like to quilt with really well. We'll take a closer look at that. We're also going to be using our weightless quilter tabletop. That's a must, as you'll see, because this Sew Any Shape foam is almost like a surfboard when it's in the hoop, as you'll see. And I want to show you how you can economize on foam by literally keeping it all one giant piece while you're doing your bag sections and cutting it after you quilt. You won't do that all the time, but when you first get your package, that's how I do it. And I'm going to share my tip for that. What else are we going to use? Oh, well, we're going to be hooping, so we absolutely have to have a hoop mat. And of course, Snap Hoop Monster. You can't go wrong when quilting with Snap Hoop Monster. In fact, it's really the only way to quilt on your embroidery machine. So let's take a look at planning the quilting. Okay. I like to start with identifying the bag shapes, right? Because they are what's going to tell you everything about your next steps. And speaking of, Ashley was here last week. Our hoops are on sale all month. We also have another special on Hoop Mat, but March Madness is Monster Madness. So I hope you take advantage of that. If you've had an eye on a certain size, this would be the time to do it. Okay, so identifying the bag sections. You might be working with a pattern like Open Wide 2.0, created by Annie.com. Many of you are familiar with her great pattern line. Wonderful. And she quilts through all 3 sections. So the lining is not freestanding, and she finishes her edges with bias binding. So that's her trick, right? Or that's her style, shall we say. But you might be using a shaped pattern where your lining is actually freestanding, right? It's not quilted, it's inserted, and it's really a nice way to add zippers. It's real professional finish. I like both ways, to be honest with you. So I'm going to use software to do both different attempts, or not attempts, but designs. So I've identified my bag sections, and I would open up this pattern and get those measurements. It's clearly laid out what size I need to cut my rectangle, and then quilt it. And then after I've quilted it, the pattern tells me to trim it down to the finished size. So let's go ahead and take a look at how I do this in Perfect Embroidery Pro. So in the software, I'm going to go to the shape tool and select a rectangle and just, drag and drop the mouse and then punch in the sizes in the data fields on the right-hand side in the property box. And then I'll take that rectangle and copy and paste it. So I have two rectangles. And then I'm going to convert one of the rectangles to a complex fill. And from the complex fill, I will select advanced quilting and go into the library to select one of the offerings. And then I'm going to shrink that rectangle, right? And I'm going to change the angle of the pattern. And I'm going to reshape that rectangle, the bottom, so that I have a nice curved line. And then I'm going to draw another rectangle. So what I'm doing here is I am actually designing quilting for the top here and the middle and this area. And then I'm going to repeat that for the other side, but it's one long rectangle, as you can see. Now, I know I'm moving really fast here in the software, but you can rewatch this program and slow it down if you really want to follow along in software. I just thought you'd like to kind of see the simple steps it takes and how I work. I always start in software because it's so friendly. It's virtual quilting. I can be there all day. I never waste any fabric or thread or anything, right? But I get to play, and I really get to, audition stitches and even fabric if I wanted to, which I'm not going to do in this video, but you sure could. Okay, so then I take the top two rectangles, copy and paste them, fill the bottom, and now I'm going to fill in the bottom section, which is actually going to be the bottom of the bag, right? So I'll just use the tools that are in there to shape it. And it's as easy as that. Now, we want to make sure that all the pattern lengths are the same and so forth. Now, that other line, that other rectangle that you see in the big piece is my cut line that I'm going to use to actually cut out my quilted fabric once it's quilted. What I'm drawing on the right-hand side now are smaller rectangles for the end pieces of the bag. So these pieces, one on each side, I'm going to use the identical process where we start with a complex fill, change it to advanced stippling, and I'm also going to use the same pattern, which in this case is rain, and make sure that it's the same size pattern, and also change the angle so it's mimicking the other elements on the bag, because we want it all to match, right? And then this too has another rectangle inside. These are the instructions that I'm following on the pattern, and this line that I'm drawing now will be the cut line. And because it's a rounded corner, By Annie doesn't actually give you a shape. She just tells you to take a spool of thread and place it on the corner of the rectangle to get that curved shape. So instead of doing that manually, I just use my art tool and select an ellipse and draw a circle, put it in the corner, and copy paste, put it in the other corner. And now I'm going to use my shape tool to change that hard right corner to a nice curved corner that's just going to snug up on that ellipse. And this software allows you to play as much as you want, right? And it's virtual quilting, so it's easy, it's fun. You can't break software, so you don't have to worry about hurting anything, but you could stay here all day and audition these points, move them, tweak them a little bit, and eventually you have to remember that it's just stitches. So find a happy stopping point and copy, and and then hit save, and you're ready to go. So once I have that piece all digitized and designed. I'm going to copy and paste the whole thing after I remove those artwork sections. I mean, they could stay there, it doesn't matter, but I was just kind of cleaning it up. So now we're going to take the little smaller rectangle and copy and paste it and pull it down below. And now I have the opposite end, right? I need two. So that's going to be one hooping. And once we have that shaped rectangle converted to a run stitch, because we just want it to be a stitched line that I can see on the fabric after it's quilted, so I know where to cut it out. So I'm taking those small rectangles and putting them into a new folder and file, and then I'm going to send it to my machine wirelessly. I love that new feature in Perfect Embroidery Pro. And then I'll go back to the main body of the design and do the same thing and send it to my machine. And that's how I like to audition, quilting. And I'm just kind of ready to go ahead and get going. So next thing we want to do is I have my quilting plan now. And the next thing we're going to do is move over to prepping the foam. There's not a lot that you have to do with that. I can tell you, you really just have to press it. Carolyn Booth says she loves the wireless feature. So do I. I am so spoiled with that wireless feature. And, I have to kudos to our developers who really did an excellent job in developing that wireless feature. I hear that it's people who are used to other products that or other software programs that transfer wirelessly are just so impressed with ours because it streamlines and you don't have to convert first. It's just lovely. Okay, so let's see. So Laura Parks wants to know, what software are you using? Yeah, my Quilt Planner is definitely the software I was using. You could also do it in PEP, either one of those, I believe. So, and let's see, Joanne Banco says, the wireless feature has me spoiled rotten. Me too. Oh, I agree. I love it. Okay, so let's go on over and take that foam out of the bag, right, which I've already done. And when you get it, it's folded multiple times. It's because it's 56 or 58 inches wide by 36. You get a yard in a package. And so it's going to have these creases. So let me just kind of put one section here, make sure I'm on my mat. And I'm going to take folks, it's just water. Even though it looks like Jack Daniels, it's just water. And I'm going to spray those creases. Now, if I was home, I have a really nice steam iron at home. I would, use that. And you definitely want to use a clean iron. Holy moly. Well, that's embarrassing. So here, we'll just flip that over. And you know what's so beautiful about that? It's going to be inside my bag and nobody will ever know it. So I most certainly will not use that with a white fabric. But look how nice that is. So you can see just how it comes out as compared to over here where you still see those creases. So that little bit of water kind of released some of that glue. You know what we're doing here on Facebook Live. Goodness, you never know what kind of adhesive or glue that we're using. And of course, that water has activated it. So you can make sure next week when we're on air, we're going to have a clean iron. We're going to get our iron cleaner out and clean that off. But okay, so now I am ready for the next step. And the next step is figuring out if you are going to hoop 2 layers or 3 layers. So let's go ahead and add that. So when we have a bag that has a lining insert like this one, then I'm only going to hoop the foam and the outer fabric. But if I am doing this bag, and that's the setup that I just showed you in software, then I am going to be hooping all 3 layers, right? My lining and my foam and my outer layer. So let's take a look at how we treat that when we do it. Okay, so when it's 2 layers, it's super simple, right? It's just, you just take your fabric, your top fabric, and you put it in the hoop and you smooth it in place and you don't worry about it. But when it is 3 layers, and here this I have cut so you can see how I would Frankenstein my foam, right? Because if I'm not going to do a really big piece, or if I just have a scrap and I want to do those small rectangles, which I've already cut out. So you just saw me create these in software, right? So I've already quilted that and cut it out. But just to do these two little squares, I didn't need a giant piece of foam, but I did need, a pretty big hoop. So let's go ahead, and there's our lining. And now our foam is actually smaller than our outer bag. And what I like to do first is flip it over. And from the lining side, believe it or not, I'm going to pin. And I do that just to keep it under control. I'm going to remove them before I quilt, but it just helps me make sure that everything is in place. And then from the top, I really want to smooth this out. And I can release that fabric to me if I've, caught it in the pin. There we go. Okay, so now that's nice and smooth. And then I'll just put a couple pins in the top. Just, maybe 3, right down the center. And of course, always when we hoop, right, we're going to get that nice strong stabilization from the magnetic hoop. Okay, so now I'm going to flip this over and remove those 3 pins that were there. Okay, and then see, that just kept the lining in the right position without any wrinkles or pleats. So let's go ahead and move that pad, and we'll use our hoop mat to get that hooped. Okay, so I just wanted to show you how that foam is not really in the hoop. See, on the sides, it does extend at the top and the bottom, but not all the way around. So don't worry about smaller bags having to use, a giant sheet, right? There we go. We got a nice strong hold. And then we are ready to go and stitch those small elements of the bag. And when they stitch, they're going to be like that. And then I did go and cut them out on my serger to finish those edges, because it's a good way to kind of compress those edges and make them nice and sealed, so you don't have the 3 layers flopping around as you are actually sewing the bag together. So that's for small hoops. Now I want to show you, is this when we want to show you how to hoop for big bags? Okay, so I already showed you that hoop mat is on sale. So let's take a look at hoop mat. Gosh, I don't hear any sound. So hoop mat is a silicone mat, and we have this new color, the pink. It has a 1/2-inch printed grid, and it's soft and flexible, yet stays on top of your surface, your work surface. Those bold centering lines are so helpful when you're trying to center something in the hoop. And it has a new, larger size than our previous blue one. Now take a look. If you're trying to hoop on a regular cutting mat, notice how that moves all over the place, right? So annoying. You're always chasing that outer ring or bottom frame of Snap Hoop Monster, and yet on hoop mat, it doesn't move at all. You just place that hoop there, and you can be confident that that outer ring will stay in place just as you had planned. And let's see. We're going to put some stabilizer in that outer ring, and you'll notice when you go to insert that inner ring, it doesn't move at all. And of course, it also works with our Snap Hoop Monster, which could be a challenge, right? We don't want that bottom hoop to move And it absolutely also works with multi-needle hoops. So any hoop that you have will be a good hoop to put on snap hoop on our hoop mat because it does really make all the difference. Here's our friend John Webb saying, love hoop mat. It makes all the difference. And Stephanie Young, yep, she loves it too. I don't blame you. I mean, I don't know what we did before, I'll tell you. And then Stephanie, she needs the pink. Everybody needs the pink. And if you're like me, you've probably found other uses for your blue hoop mat. And now they're all over my house. So anyway, uh, and let's see. Okay, so Laura Parks, she says she had an idea for the pink hoop mat. She bought two, and she's going to cut one for a smaller hoop for her hooping station. Good for you. Yeah, I love that. And Jill down in Palm Beach, thanks for joining us. Love the hoop mat. It's just, and and it's on sale this week, so you got to take advantage of that. Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, so now let's talk about when you're doing big bags. That was how you hoop for small bags. Let's talk about the planning, the hoop plan, right, for these big bags. So now this can look a little confusing, but the yellow that you see here is the foam, okay? And those rectangles are all large rectangles. They're like 10 by 13, so they'll fit in a very large 10 by 16 hoop. So hoop one, I would do down at the bottom, that rectangle, and then move over and do hoop two. And then, do that whole column. And now it's time to do hoop seven. So you see the image on the left, I actually cut away my first row of quilted foam because I don't need all that bulk at the machine, right? So once I have it quilted, I can go ahead and trim it away so it's a little bit more manageable. And then when it's time for hoop seven, I'm actually going to flip the orientation so that if you envision that image on the right, that you're actually sitting at the machine, so you know that that excess foam is extending to your left and away from the head of the machine, right? So it's over the pantograph arm. And so it's just, a user-friendly way to hoop and to plan that, because some bags take a lot of pieces. And I mean, these are small bags, but if you're making a duffel bag or a big quilt carrying bag, these pieces can get quite large and it can be in multiple different sizes that you're then going to piece later. So let's go ahead and take a look at, remember, I just have to remind you that all month of March, Snap Hoop Monsters on sale. So now let's take a look at how to actually quilt. Now I want you to keep an eye on the machine as it's stitching, because you're going to see that I have Frankenstein this, right? In the sense that that's my giant piece of foam. It is 36 inches by 54. And it's being held in place by the tabletop weightless quilter. That's that little blue black clip you see at the top left of the screen. Now, as the machine or the hoop travels around, you're going to notice that that big piece of foam really starts to move. And imagine if that wasn't clasped in the weightless quilter. It would be dragging off the machine bed, right? And very possibly taking, the quilt top with it. I mean, see how it's moving right there? You can see how that foam is shifting and moving. So if it wasn't held up by the weightless quilter, we'd really be in trouble. We would definitely be having some issues where it would be falling off the table and probably taking fabric or the quilt top frame with it. Now, Snap Hoop Monster is great for quilting, and I use it for quilting foam, for batting all the time. But we do have to remember to take in consideration the weight and the bulk of what we're quilting. These embroidery machines are not long arms. They were not designed to handle very large canvases. In fact, they were only designed to handle the largest hoop size that's compatible with that machine. So if you're going to ask more of your embroidery machine, like I do, then you need the tools to compensate for that, like to hold that quilt or that foam sandwich above the machine bed. Now you can see I'm advancing for the next bag section, and I am just lifting that top frame, sliding the fabric down. I'm selecting my next design, and I'm checking the space at the top to make sure I'm not going to stitch on top of the previous stitch design, right? And making any adjustments. And of course, sometimes the needle falls out or what have you, but that's going to finish that bag. Those beautiful designs, and I have them stitched out over here. I'm going to show you. They stitched out in absolutely no time. That's one of the beautiful things about quilting with your embroidery machine. It is so fast because, this bag I actually did on a sewing machine. So I free motion quilted this, I think with a walking foot. And I'm going to show you close under the camera. It's not perfect. It's definitely not perfect. But, my quilted bags with my embroidery machine are definitely perfect. Yeah, let's see. Jennifer Alexander says that the fabric would definitely be caught on something without the weightless quilter. So true. These tools are just really handy. So just notice how that frame just keeps kind of wiggling, right? Not the frame, but the foam as the frame moves on the pantograph. You could see it all moving, but definitely that was popping out of the hoop if we didn't have it secured in the weightless quitter tabletop. So let's go ahead over and take a closer look at some of these samples. So here is the bag that I actually did this on a sewing machine, right, with just a straight stitch. And, I did okay. I mean, they're fairly parallel until we get down here. Something happened there, who knows. And then on the back, I did a finer, closer stitches. The rows are closer together. And that's just a personal preference. The closer the rows of quilting are, the more dense the foam, well, not dense, but it becomes more compressed. Like this is softer, a little bit loftier, as where this is, a little bit stiffer. Now, some of those lines that you see in there are for a pocket, right? So I have pipe cleaners in there because I'm always using them to clean machines. All right, so now let's go over to, here's one section that I did that was in that video, right? So now take a look at how wide that quilting is, right? How far apart. Big spaces here. This is at least 2 inches. This is probably a 1/2 inch. Big wide open spaces. And then on the other one, I shrunk it down. And now I have a tighter quilting, right? Same design. It's absolutely the same design. Here, I'll let you take a good look at it. So here it's a square, and that's the design. And I repeated that here once, twice, and because I have software, I chopped it and just filled in the bottom in this little section down there. And I'll hold it up so you can see that better. So that's the third design. Here we have 1, 2, and then 3. On this pattern, I stitched that outline, right? Because in software, just like I drew that rectangle that I showed you for this bag, the teal bag, I can also draw this shape of a curved bag. But if you don't want to do that and you just have, quilting designs that you have and you're going to quilt a, like let's say a large rectangle, and then you want to use a pattern to cut it out, well, here's a nifty idea to use, and that's our print and stick target template paper. So you can print out that PDF pattern if it's one that you've purchased, and then just trace it. Just trace that right on our print and stick target paper. And just take your time. I'm not very good at tracing anymore. It's hard to have a straight, smooth hand. When you do live broadcasts, kind of want to be a little shaky. Just the nature of the beast. Okay, that's going to go all the way down to the bottom. And this one, I did not go all the way to the bottom. So we'll do that now. And then we can peel that off. And now I can see through. I had to make that a little bit bigger. Now I can just put this right onto my, my quilted fabric. There we go. And make sure it's where I want it. Now, I made this a little skinny, but that's okay because those corners are going to be boxed and that'll be a seam allowance. So if I had a printed fabric or a quilt with a medallion style, this print and stick target paper really helps me see where my quilting is going to be positioned in the bag section. And that's important, right? Because we want to make sure that it's, the best that we want to see. On my curved bag, on this one, I actually have two different, the same embroidery design, right? Here is a little tight, and on this side, it's much wider open. So it's just a personal choice. I just thought you'd like to see the difference in what size and density of stitching can do. So we have a lot of loft here. We have big open areas. So this foam is really soft in this area. And over here, it's denser, right? It's flattened a bit more because the stitches are closer together. And those open spaces are narrower. So that's how that came out. So let's take a look at this piece. This is the main body of my, little, well, the blue one. Here, let's go ahead. This is going to be the same bag. This is the smaller version. It always amazes me, like, this blue bag, this piece really wasn't that much bigger, but man, it's such a big bag. But when you get it together and you put these pieces in there, it's going to have a really nice shape, right? And it'll be a good makeup case or sewing. So now all I need to do is put these little rectangles in place. And, I took a moment in software to actually find the center of that rectangle, and I put a stitch there in the software. I just let the software do it. So now I don't have to fold it up and find it. And I did the same thing for my ends. Of course, it's in the serging here, but that little stitch right there is the center of this. So when it comes time to put this together, I just match them and fold the edges. And, I'll use my clips and then finish with by Annie's instructions. So super fun. So much to do. Yeah, let's see. Reen Wilcoxon, she says she loves the quilting designs you can create in your software. I do too. They are endless. I mean, playing in software is a whole lot of fun. And I hope that a lot of you, do that because it just gives you limitless design capabilities. And Jennifer Alexander, she likes to quilt vinyl before she makes a bag. When you quilt vinyl, it is really very cool because, vinyl has a sheen. So your hills and valleys of the quilting, right? The areas that are stitched are the valleys, and the raised area that has no stitching are the hills. And that sheen plays off of the hills and valleys and makes it look even more dimensional. So yeah, I hope you have a lot of fun with that. Of course, you have to make sure, really when you're going to digitize for vinyl, you have to be very careful. You don't have extra stitches in there, right? Because you don't want any walking path that you think is going to be hidden later on because it's going to put a hole in your vinyl. So just be careful of that. And but so much fun. Yeah, it really is so much fun. And let's see, Jennifer Alexander, she says running stitches are so fast when quilting on a birch. They are. I mean, those designs stitched in, those red bags stitched in 2 minutes, and the teal a little bit longer, maybe 4 or 5. Oh my, isn't that wonderful? It's just great. It really is. Yeah. Okay. So what's next? Well, many of you came last week to see Ashley Jones, and I so appreciate that. She did a great job on talking about cross stitch for machine embroidery in software, and that was really pretty cool. So her next time here on Facebook Live will be with her software success on March 19th at 1 o'clock. And she's going to be talking about vintage embroidery a little bit more in that kind of vintage era, but it has a new trendy look. So I think that you'll really enjoy that. And then I'll be back next week, and I have a guest. Next week, I'll be here at 1 o'clock, and I have Margaret Moorhead from the Virtual Sewing Guild is going to be joining me. So those of you who know Margaret or have never met Margaret, you're in for a treat. We're going to learn all about this Virtual Sewing Guild and how that organization, that website and community has really lifted up sewists, embroiderers, quilters alike into a great community that it learns together all the time. So, Pamela Nestler, thank you for that lovely comment. You like learning new things in our Between Friends show. Well, we feel blessed to be here to do what we do, sharing our passion for embroidery with all of you. So it's a great thing. And Joanne Banco says you haven't seen Margaret Moorhead in a long time. I haven't either, to be honest with you. So it'll be really fun to have her come back. And I know many of you are waiting to find out when we are going live next. And so that's easy to do. If you subscribe to our YouTube channel or like us on Facebook, you will be notified when we're going live. So I hope that you will do that for us. It means a lot to us anytime that you can do that. And I know you're really excited about what's coming up on the House. Well, speaking of social media, when you share your projects using the hashtag of Dime Sew Along, On the House, or Exquisite Thread, we find them. We look for you and we find them and we put those images in this reel. So I would hope that you would be doing that. Let's take a look.
In this video, we'll show you how to subscribe to a YouTube channel and follow a Facebook page through your phone. Let's start with YouTube. First, open your YouTube app on your phone. Once you're on your home page, search for the Designs in Machine Embroidery in the search bar at the top of the screen. Click on it and go to the channel page. Once on the channel page, click the subscribe button. And that's it. You're now subscribed to the channel. Now, let's move on to Facebook. First, open your Facebook app. Once on your home page, search for Designs in Machine Embroidery in the search bar at the top of the screen. Once on the profile page, click the three dots and select the follow button. And that's it. You're now following the page. Thanks for watching.
We would love to see any creations you all make with our free On the House designs. To do that, we have to be able to find your designs first. Go to Facebook and create a new post for your latest project. Make sure that your post is set to public view and add a quick description and photo of what you've made. Now the important part, adding your hashtags. You're going to want to use hashtag #OnTheHouse, hashtag #DimeSewAlong, and hashtag Exquisite Thread. And that's it. Now you can click post.
And let's take a look at what you've been posting. Aren't they adorable? Oh, I hope so many of you are taking advantage of that bunny treat bag and some of those other projects and all those free designs. This is where you find the free design at www.dzgns.com. There's our website behind me. So make sure you jump over there to find out, find those designs. Okay, and this week is the girl bunny. So a couple weeks ago we had the boy bunny, and now we have she's got a cute little charm necklace, right? And a pink bow and purple metallic eyeglasses. So I hope you'll take advantage of that. So timely right now at this time of year. So I really appreciate you joining me today. Next week, we're going to be back with my good friend Margaret Moorhouse from Virtual Sewing Guild, and we're going to be talking about more quilting with your embroidery machine and really how to get those designs lined up nice and straight as you are quilting big projects, small projects, or just making sure you need to be square in the hoop. So I look forward to seeing you then, and thank you so much for joining me today.
Bye.